So how did you get involved with the UW farm?
I got involved as a student. I went to UW from 2017 through 2021. And pretty much my first week at UW, I just went to the Dog Days Pizza Bake at the farm, which we still do
Okay.
annually. It was very different back then. It was kind of a smaller crew, a smaller farm, less crazy pizza bake. But I just met a lot of great people, and I met some folks who ended up becoming some of my best friends still to this day. And I was really jazzed about the whole farm. It was beautiful. It was like September. It was beautiful. There's all these sunflowers and squash and tomatoes, and it just seemed really abundant. And the people seemed nice, and it seemed like an interesting program. So I started volunteering at the farm. I did service learning, and then I did, farm internships. I basically did all of the things that I could at the farm, and I stayed pretty involved throughout my whole 4 years at UW.
Did you have any like farm experience beforehand? Or?
No, not at all. I grew up in Seattle, not very far away from UW, and I was an urban youth. My mom had some roses and stuff, but I never gardened ever, and didn't have a lot of farm experience. Probably my only farm experience was that some of our family friends moved up to the Skagit Valley, and they lived in the middle of a potato field.
Okay.
And we would me and my best friend growing up would run across the potato field and destroy all their furrows, which I'm sure they hated. But no, I had no farm experience, and I think the only thing that I knew prior to getting involved was that I liked being outside.
Okay.
But I thought I was going to study English or Law, Societies, and Justice and become a writer or something. And I did study some of those things, but farming kind of took hold.
Was that in the first year that was apparent that you wanted to stick with the farm, or was it something in the first year you knew?
Pretty quickly. I mean, I wasn't sure on my major. For whatever reason, I didn't want to be an environmental studies major. That didn't feel like... I don't know why. I was just it's not
so
exactly
what was your
right.
major?
Community Environment and Planning,
Okay.
which is kind of an urban planning major in the College of Built Environments. And the reason that was attractive to me is how flexible it is, and how kind of like CHIT, you choose your own study plan, you make your own study plan, and then it's this collaborative student-run major, and I really like that aspect of it. The small cohort, and everybody who's in CEP kind of had to really self-select into it. I liked those aspects of CEP, and it just ended up being kind of what I was looking for.
A good friend of mine is actually in that major right now.
Nice.
He really likes it.
Yeah.
So what's your role here at the farm now, since you graduated when?
2021, during the pandemic. And then I went out to Whidbey Island and worked on Dr. Eli Wheat's farm out there. He's a professor at UW, involved with the farm. I worked there for 2 seasons, learned a lot, loved living in a rural environment like that, and actually living on the farm. But then in 2023, I knew I wanted to move back to Seattle for a lot of different reasons. And so I was working at farmers markets for a while. I was working for a farm out in eastern Washington, doing some of their Seattle distribution. Meat and potato farm, Olson Farms, great folks. And so I was doing all that kind of stuff, and it was going all right, but I was applying for lots of different jobs with Tilth and with other organizations in the food systems world. I kind of knew that there's a limit on how much money you can make being a farmhand, and B, I wanted to do something a little bit more social and interesting, and a little bit more not just farming, but something else as well. And I'd kind of heard on the margins that this job was being created, the production manager position. I'd kind of heard through the grapevine that might be happening, and so I kept kind of texting Perry. I was like, is this happening? And eventually it was happening, and so I applied for the job, and I started as production manager in April of 2023, and that was a lot of people have done some version of this job. Initially, the AmeriCorps was kind of more of a production manager, and things have shifted over time. But I started as like the first UW staff person with this role, you could say. And at first, the job was temporary, and we were able to make it permanent, which is great. Nice. So hopefully, when I leave, someone else will. The position will be enduring. Yeah.
And then what do you do as someone in this position?
So the idea is that my focus is really on the production side of what we do. So, big focuses throughout the year are making the crop plan, ordering all of our seeds, ordering all of our supplies, the farmy aspect of it, our sales relationships, so selling our produce, record keeping, and then managing field work and making sure we're implementing the crop plan on a week-to-week basis. And obviously it's a small team between me and the farm manager and the AmeriCorps, so we all do aspects of production, but I'm kind of laser focused on the production part of it, and I don't have to think as much about like the education or the academics or the community outreach or the budget or the a million other things that we end up doing.
Yeah. Wow. So how, like, in your position now, like, what does the farm mean to you, and like how do you see yourself growing in this position, or what you want to do in the future, or how you're gonna like leave, I guess, how do you just want to provide other students and like you know what I mean?
Big questions. What does the farm mean to me is a big question. I think the farm means a lot to me. Kind of like the center of all of the work that I've done has been the farm, and I think I always hope that we can continue providing the kind of experience that I had on the farm, like just how transformational that was, and how it helped me find both a community and like a home at UW, as well as like a sense of purpose. And I think for me, the sense of purpose came from like being involved with this thing that I could both have a real impact on, and that was a lot bigger than myself. And just seeing how much food we could grow and how much was donated and how many people were involved. But like that balance of like, on the other hand, I knew I could show up as a student volunteer or a student staff and work really hard, and that would have like a real impact that I could see. You know what I'm saying? Like there's a balance between like having a tangible impact, but then the scale is something that is like bigger than just one person or yourself. So I hope that we can continue to provide that experience, because I think beyond how much produce we're able to grow, which directly relates to how much produce we can donate to students, beyond that, what's really special about the farm is how many opportunities there are for students to be leaders. Like, Phoebe, second year intern, she basically ran the whole volunteer shift this morning. She's leading her peers and community members, and she's gotten to a point where she knows what she's doing so much that she gets to be a leader. And I think those skills are like really broadly applicable no matter what you're doing in life. If Phoebe might not end up being a farmer, but she's going to work with other people. She's going to be in situations where leadership skills are required. She's going to be in situations where managing people's feelings and whatever is required. So I think that's a really unique part about this program. And I think at UW there's a lot of opportunities for students. Some opportunities are pretty hard to access. Some opportunities require really specific prerequisites or resumes or whatever. And I think the farm provides like kind of a more accessible space where you're always welcome. You can show up as little or as much as you want, and you kind of get out of it as much as you put in. Like the more you show up, the more produce you could take home. The more you show up, the more we'll start being like, hey, can you lead this project? Can you do that?
Yeah.
And so that's a cool thing. And then in terms of where I'm going in life, it's hard to say exactly. This is sort of this job, the combination of like actually farming and then having a little bit of an administrative role and working with students and being an educator of sorts. It's kind of a perfect combination of things for me right now. So for the time being, it sort of feels like a dream job. But I also think there's a lot of other people who would be really good at this, and so I don't want to like hog it forever. And I've been involved with the farm for a really long time, so part of me feels like I need to spread my wings and do something else at some point. And I don't know, I think that it's a tough balance. I think I definitely want growing food to be part of my life forever. But I don't have so much of an interest in being an individual commercial farmer and trying to make a living farming, at least by myself. I think I get a lot more out of it when it's collaborative, and I get a lot more out of it when like the only purpose is not making money. So I think, I don't know, I can imagine some type of future where I have like a big market garden or some kind of a homestead, but then I, work off the farm as a teacher or a shopkeeper or something else to make money. Yeah.
Nice. So what would you say are the goals of the farm right now, since we're in growing season right now, we're harvesting, so what are some of the things you're thinking about on a day-to-day basis?
Well, my goals are pretty production focused. I kind of think of my goal as growing as much produce as we possibly can, because the more we grow, the more we can donate. And we have this relationship with the food pantry, and we hear from them the need for fresh produce. And like, I just dropped off tons of produce this morning, a bunch of different things, probably like, I don't know, 50 pounds total or something, and even that, it's like, it's going to be gone in 30 minutes or an hour. And just one of their biggest needs that they hear from people who use the pantry is produce. So the more we grow, the more we can donate, and I'm totally fine with donating like most of what we grow if that's what ends up happening. Like, we do need revenue from sales, but like, until our CSA starts, Housing and Food Services does not purchase everything we offer. And like, I'm okay with that, because that means we get to donate a lot of produce. So that's kind of one big goal I have. And in order to do that, I think it's all about organization, and timing, and, staffing, frankly, like if we're able to keep on top of things. We're doing a really good job right now. I think in order to have like a maximized production, you have to be really on top of weeding. So, weeding sooner rather than later, weeding when weeds are small, and then just flipping beds quickly, starting crops every week. There's a lot. Basically following the crop plan to a T as much as possible, and just being organized. But I think, a lot of it comes down to staff, and we've been lucky to have such a strong crew right now. Obviously, it's a little bit impacted by the AmeriCorps thing, but we're still doing all right. And then, so there's that. Those are kind of my focuses, are production, and I am always thinking in my brain, like, how can we grow as much food as possible? But obviously, I have to like balance that with like the fact that it's a volunteer organization, it's an educational organization, so it's not appropriate for me to be like, everybody work super hard, no talking, like we're just gonna plant these tomatillos as fast as possible. Like, that's not the vibe.
Definitely not the vibe.
No. But so we have to be strategic, right? We have to be strategic about how we can get certain things done. Like, when's the right time in the week to do some projects that are more high stakes, that we really don't want people to mess up, and who can do those things. And
I was reading through the workbook you created, which I feel like you don't advertise enough here when you come, because there's a ton of information there that people could just look through. But
That's
one
true.
of the things that you said was having a good plan beforehand and knowing what you're gonna do, and and having tasks that if there's a ton of volunteers that they can help out with too.
Yeah.
And that seems like a lot of like forethought and like planning beforehand.
Totally, yeah, and yeah, it's really, there's a lot, I think there's a lot more than people realize to like keeping everybody occupied, especially if like 20 people show up. You'll see us get kind of hyperactive, but it's because it's like people don't like it when they're standing around not doing anything. You can see people starting to get bored or frustrated. So like keeping everybody occupied for 3 hours 9 times a week. I mean, if it was like this morning where we only had 5 people, it's pretty chill. But on any given day, like Thursdays, have you been coming on Thursdays?
No.
Randomly on Thursdays this quarter, it's just a very popular day. We've had like 15 people every Thursday morning. And like that's kind of why we're running out of things to do at Mercer Court. So yeah, I think that ends up, versus like if we were just production farmers, that also takes up a lot of brain space, right? Because we've got 9 volunteer shifts a week, and for each one of those, we can't just show up unprepared. We have to show up really having a plan of like what are the tasks that we want to accomplish, and yeah, like you said, what are bonus tasks if there's way more people than we expect. And then also, like, what is the right pace? Like, you know, what do we actually have to get done today? And beyond that, maybe we can slow it down and we can be a little more like, let's really talk about the direct seeder and the function of it and why we use it. And everybody can try it, even though that doesn't, that's not like sensical production-wise, but everybody can do one row. So it just like being strategic and balancing those things. And I think my sense is that people like a mix of hard work and feeling accomplished and having fun and like listening to music. Like I don't think people come to volunteer purely because it's a chill time or purely because they like working hard. I think it's hopefully a combination of both. Yeah,
something that surprised me when I first started volunteering was the education aspect of it. You really went in depth, and you were talking about the tool, or I already forgot what the seeder is called. The Jang. The Jang?
The Jang.
The Jang, yes.
Great South Korean.
Yeah, you were going back in all like where it's from and like how it works and teaching us, and I was like, wow, like that is a ton of information that I would have never learned if I didn't come here.
That's cool.
And it was it kind of like put it all together. Like you said, there was like the work aspect, the chill aspect, and then also like the educational aspect, and all of it combined made it a good experience.
Yeah, that's what I hope for. And we don't always get the balance right. Sometimes, so definitely I get stressed out sometimes, and it's hard for me to be in the chill headspace. But, you gotta, again, you always have to remember we're working with largely people who aren't getting paid. So ethically, there's a real sense of importance on the value that people are getting out of it. If you're not getting money, then you need to be getting something, a good time, some produce, some satisfaction, some education,
And it's kind of funny because the first time I came, it completely poured.
Oh yeah, that's right. You had like the worst first, and that was a pretty intense, and we were pushing hard to get all those carrots in the ground.
I think so. Yeah.
No. We were planting onions.
Yeah, onions with the
paper pot chains. Yeah, that was a miserable day.
Honestly, I was like, dang, like this is kind of tough.
Yeah.
But I still came, and it's nice to see that it's not always like that.
Yeah.
And
sometimes I do worry about that though. I worry like when someone comes and their first day
it's their first visit,
is kind of a hard one. Like maybe we're just weeding for 3 hours because that's what we need to do, or it starts pouring rain and we keep working, or it's just not very much fun or whatever. Sometimes I do worry that like, that person maybe is gonna not come back. But people, that's why you gotta try and make it balance it at the end. But I'm glad you came back. You had another reason though to come back, so that's good. Would you have come back if you were just here for fun? That's the question.
I don't think I would have known about this if I was just here for fun, to be honest.
True.
Because I'm not in like environmental studies class or anything. That's something I've actually thought about quite a bit, is like what's the reach of the farm on UW if people aren't directly tied to the farm?
It's a good question. We are also in the public health school of public health nutrition program, so a lot of students in those classes, but those students tend to be less, not always, there's a lot that get really involved with the farm, but like definitely the students who like really latch on to the farm seem to mostly come from the environmental sciences or environmental studies realm. But we do interact with School for Public Health and Nutrition through classes. And then, I mean, we do a lot of outreach. We put events out into the campus world, like the Dog Days Pizza Bake, like the Rainy Dog Radio Pizza Bake. We go table at events, like environmental career fair events. That's how we have a couple regular volunteers now that Perry looped in through like tabling at the environmental career fair or just the career fair in general. And then, yeah, we try and get the word out there as much as possible. And other ways, like Perry's pretty good at getting out there and finding different ways for different organizations to get involved. Like Engineers Without Borders is an RSO, and they're helping us build the high tunnels or the Caterpillar tunnels at CUH right now. So, there's only so much we can do as a 3-person team, but I think we just try and get out there as much as possible and let people know. And I feel like we're self-promoting constantly, but it is funny. There's still a lot of students, even seniors at UW, who get through their whole UW experience and never know there's a farm. And part of that is just location, right? Where our sites are on the outskirts of campus. If you don't know, if you're not trying to go to the UW farm, unless you're like a big bird watcher or something and you're in UPNA or you live here, you might not find it. So yeah.
Well, thank you.
That's it.